at the museum, so if, like Paul Kearns, you have a shoebox full of arrowheads from the
Come and
Hat
see
Creek
me.
Indians that you
Come and see me.
wanna donate, this is who you go see.
I will, Dorothy, I already talked to Billy, and
So-
we'll bring it up there, you can take a look at it.
Okay.
So please help me welcome our guests.
Thank you. And I'd like to start my presentation by saying thank you to Bob again for the invite.
Bet you don't have one of those.
My first time at a function like this. Thank you all for hosting us. Not much. Thank you to Dave for allowing me a little time to make a PowerPoint with my boss, who I was hoping he would be here today, but he didn't have too much going on. What Dorothy's doing is she is passing out to each and every one of you a history of the Fort Crook in the valley. Rather than me stand up here and read this to you, hopefully we have enough copies. You'll have the sheet of paper to take with you. If we run short, I will get everybody here a copy of it. Yeah. Give you a little background on the Fort Crook Historical Society. It was founded in 1934 to collect, preserve, and display historical artifacts of basically the internet areas where it was originally founded. So, how many of you have been to the museum? Good, great. There's a lot. I know in my lifetime, a lot of people that I talk to, they drive by it every day. They have absolutely no idea what is there and what all is inside the museum. So what I've got is a PowerPoint. Well, I'll show you some pictures and kind of take you through some of the buildings. I don't have a picture of all of the buildings, but most of them. We have been fortunate to have Val Atkinson. I don't know if any of you know Val Atkinson. He is a world famous photographer that has a property out on Eastman Lake. And he has been involved with some of our functions and offered to take some pictures for us. And that's where the pictures that you'll be seeing today are pictures of Val taken. Next step. Kim, how well is this thing?
Pointed at the projector.
Just pointed at the projector.
The down button.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, let's see how we do here.
There we go.
All right, it's going to work. The main museum building, right here. Looking at it from the outside. This building was built in the 1960s. It was fashioned after the Round Barn. At that time, the Round Barn was on the Beaver Creek Ranch near Little Valley. And they being a local landmark, when they were designing the main building here, they modeled it after the Round Barn. Can you guys see well enough?
Okay.
All right, now let's try this. Okay. Main museum building completed in 1963 was fashioned after the Beaver Creek Ranch Round Barn near Little Valley, only on a much smaller scale. The three-story building houses an extensive collection of Indian baskets and artifacts. A hand-dug-out Indian canoe that was retrieved from the bottom of the Fall River, I believe. Dorothy can probably fill me in on that a little better. The building also has a gun collection, Civil War uniforms, pictures, and other antiques. The main museum houses a library exhibit and a gift shop. We've got a couple pictures of the interior here. And this one shows a lot of the Indian artifacts. There's an extensive, right up here, if I can hit the wrong button, all these arrowheads were collected by Lloyd Barber, correct? Lloyd Barber. Many of the longtime people of the area will remember Lloyd. He had a shoe store in MacArthur, and that was what he enjoyed doing on his off time. He did a lot of traipsing through the woods and everything. And that's, when he passed away, his widow donated the collection that he had of.
Do you have any of Thelma Shepard's collection?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was amazing.
We have her book.
The Indian baskets, the collection is really something to see. A lot of this stuff. Okay. I've got the gun collection back in here. There is a waterfowl collection that was just donated within the last 5 years?
4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years ago. A gentleman in Castle.
He was a
Taxidermist?
Yeah, taxidermist.
And he had.
His wife donated him.
Yeah, after he had passed, his wife, his widow, donated the entire display case with all this. It's very interesting to look at. And then a lot of the antique typewriters, cash registers were all from, I shouldn't say all, most of them were from local businesses. The old safe right there, that came from the feed store, correct? Yeah. And then there's a lot of pictures of area founders. All right, Lewis Log Cabin. There's the Lewis Log Cabin. It's sitting just outside the main building. As you can see, it's very ruggedly built with all the work that went into the log, forming the logs. Lewis Log Cabin is an original log cabin complete with items used in log cabins at that time. It's like walking into someone's home in 1860. It was donated by the Rhodes family and was on the Barr Ranch, and that was just out kind of northeast of MacArthur. This is the interior. And all of these buildings suffered severe roof damage on during that hailstorm July 3rd, wasn't it? July 3rd, 2 years ago. And unfortunately for the Historical Society, of all the buildings, what was it, 2 that were insured as far as that type of a damage. So within the last year, it had to re-roof 7 buildings. It was a phenomenal
Financial hardship.
No, we used one of them.
Yeah, Lewis Gale. Pittville Schoolhouse. Here's the Pittville School.
Pony barn.
And a pony barn in the back. Pittville School was built in 1884, small town of Pittville across the valley. It was moved to its present location at the museum when it was 110 years old in 1994. Visitors like to ring the old school bell. The school bell is still up in the top. I have a family history with the Pittville School. My great aunts and uncles, my grandfather went to school there in the late 1800s, early 1900s. There's pictures of them in there. It's very interesting to go through this. There's a map on these up near the front that shows all of the area schools prior to unification in 1949.
And we also have a lot of the school registers for all the kids that went to those schools.
And it was, after it was abandoned, the Holmby family used it as a granary for many years. And originally it was a 2-story building, 2-story schoolhouse, but there was a fire, and how in the world they saved these buildings from burning completely to the ground back then, it's just, I don't know how they did it. But apparently the upper story was so badly damaged that they just pulled it off and re-roofed it. So, another picture of the display cases. And
That log back there in the back is, how old is it?
No,
Back there in that showcase?
There's a petrified log.
Uh-huh. And it's supposed to be, what, 1 million years old?
Yeah, there's a lot of history in that one building. Okay, the middle school pony barn. And I didn't have a separate picture, so
It's in the back there.
That's the pony barn right there.
That's where the kids used to park their ponies.
Yeah. Bill School Pony Barn was moved to the museum in 1994, same time, and located behind the schools. It was 1884. Students tied their horses there while they attended school. Got pictures of my grandfather sitting on a horse out in front of the school. James Building. Here's a picture of the James Building from the outside. James Building was built in 1978 by the James and the Perkins families in memory of their ancestors, the James family. Most of the items are on display came from the James home. As you walk down the hall of this building, you can view through the glass windows the parlor, the dining room, kitchen, bedroom, and other antiques. Also displayed is a collection of Verna Cessna's mini teapots. She collected
266.
266 teapots that she collected through her lifetime. And when she passed away, her family donated them to the museum. There's one of the pictures inside the James Building.
There's the teapots.
How those shelves hold all that weight.
They can move.
I don't know. If there was an earthquake, it would be disaster. Because there is lots and lots of teapots. Yeah. Okay, Red Barn Blacksmith Shop. Picture of the front of the Red Barn. I don't have the date on there. I believe that was built in the late 70s,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah.
79.
79. Red Barn, the blacksmith shop, has a variety of exhibits, which include antique trucks, woodworking tools, and logging equipment. The blacksmith shop holds workshops every winter to introduce area residents to the craft of blacksmithing. It is a functioning blacksmith shop. I believe it's the first and third Sundays of the month from November through April.
Yeah.
You go there on Sunday and from 1 to 4.
1 to 4. There's no cost to the workshops, no charge, but of course, like everything, donations are greatly accepted and thankfully accepted to help cover the cost of the coal. That's the main expense. The other thing too is steel. They're always looking, needing metal to use in this blacksmith crew. So if you have any scrap iron, anything from horseshoes to railroad spikes, anything.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll make something out of them. Picture of Ron Shannon in one of the blacksmithing demonstrations. And again, these pictures were taken by Val Atkinson, and his work is really amazing. Here's a picture from inside. The antique fire truck from MacArthur Volunteer Fire Department. A lot of antique engines, buggies. This truck right there was a delivery or motor stage.
Motorized stagecoach.
Stagecoach that they used to
There
bring in.
was 22 went out of the Fall River Valley every day at different sequences, and it took 2 days to get from Fall River to Redding.
Yeah, imagine hauling a freight, yeah. Fall River Jail. Picture of the Fall River Jail from the outside. Actually, I don't think I have any, Val didn't take any pictures of
I
the
don't know.
interior of the Fall River Jail. But as you can see, it's a very well-built building. Fall River Jail was built in 1938 and served the Fall River Mills area until 1956. It was purchased by the Historical Society for $50 and moved to museum grounds. It's a rugged facility with 2 cells. And
And it's got toilets.
one of the little interesting tidbits of history was the first resident of the jail was one of the gentlemen that helped build it. Got to spend the first night in it, or whatever.
Yeah.
Having over too much. Fort Crook Cabin. Okay, the Fort Crook Cabin here, there's a picture of it from the outside. Fort Crook Cabin was built in 1857 when the fort was built. It was donated to move to the museum from Gomez Road in 1999. It's the only known original building remaining from Fort Crook. I don't know how many of you might remember or know Felix Eastman up there. Felix remembered as a child when that building was moved from the Fort Crook site to its location where it was for many, many years on the near Gomez Ranch off the Gomez Road, and it was used as a house. And what was funny about the thing was it had been added onto, and people that had bought the property decided to build a new home, and they were going to take the old house down. So they started to disassemble the old house, and guess what they found? They found a cabin. Inside, they had no idea it was a log cabin. And that's when the history was researched on it, and that's where it came from. Picture inside the cabin.
So do we know what they used the cabin for?
There was
Well,
some
there
speculation.
was some research done on it, and Steve, what was his name, Steve, and his wife did some research, and they got some stuff from the archives in Washington, and the closest they could come to it by the way it was built and everything was it was either a cook shack or the bakery. And they never did find out for sure which one. And we kind of assumed that it might have been the bakery because it has an upstairs. And if it was the bakery, the baker and his wife probably did the baking downstairs and lived upstairs. But that's as close as we could get.
Yeah.
So it's just merely a guess.
Unfortunately, the truth is probably lost to history on it.
Yeah.
Picture General George Cook there is in there. Pondosa Timekeeper's Cabin. Picture of it from the outside. It's one of our newer additions. Used in the logging community of Pondosa from 1930 until 1978. It was built on skids so it could be moved around to various logging sites. And it was in a serious state of disrepair when it came to the museum and hauled in, so a lot of work was done. It gave us a real good opportunity to showcase the area's logging history and artifacts. The Fort Crook Museum, if and when you're able to go through the buildings, you'll notice that it's just bursting at the seams, and there's people that have items that they would love to donate, but we just have no place, no room. There's no place to put it. So this came in as really as a godsend for giving us more room to properly display the stuff, where you can have like things and like buildings, and where you can get to them. Okay, Beaver Creek Ranch Tack Room. This outside view from the tack room. Billy, how many years was that brought in? 2 years ago?
No, it's more like 4 years ago.
4 years ago? Okay. Beaver Creek Ranch Tack Room is located behind the schoolhouse and was remained reconstructed. There it is, 2013.
Yep.
Exhibits include old saddles, tack, harnesses, and other horse-related equipment. Picture inside. This tack building was on the Beaver Creek Ranch out south and east of Pittville. And the ranch owners decided they wanted to donate it to the museum. And
Those two saddles on that end over there belong to
here,
Wayne and his brother.
Norm.
Wayne Norris?
No, Eldridge.
Wayne, oh, okay. So that was Wayne and his sister.
Wayne and-
His sister then. Because Wayne
Yeah.
didn't have a brother.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So the Eldridge family owned the Beaver Creek Ranch for many, many, many years. Here's a picture of it. This location. Okay, Beaver Creek Ranch Round Barn. Here's a picture of the round barn from the outside. Okay, the Beaver Creek Ranch Round Barn was reconstructed using all materials that could be used from the original barn. It was located near Little Valley. The project started in 2003 and was completed in 2009. This project I had a personal hand in because in 2003, one of the current owners, co-owners of the Beaver Creek Ranch, Kenny Bickford is his name. He and I happened to be in the John Deere dealership looking for parts one day. And while we were sharing the time of day, I was talking to him about the round barn, because the round barn at that time had a metal roof on it at its previous location up near Little Valley. And the wind had blown some of the tin off the thing, and I was just giving him a bad time. I said, when are you going to patch that roof on that barn? You're going to have to get some tin back on that thing. And he said, oh, we're not going to mess with it. We're just going to donate it to the museum. And we both had a good laugh about it and went on about our business. And later on, I got to thinking, that's not a bad idea. And in my simplistic mind, I'm thinking, we'll just go up there and take the thing down and bring it to Fall River. Put it back up. Little did I know the path I started down. When I brought the idea to the board, there was kind of, what's a good word?
Skeptical.
Very skeptical.
Guarded pessimism?
Yeah. So I started down that path, and little did I know, to move it from its previous location and bring it into town where the public has access to it. Number one, you had to have it engineered. Number two, you had to have a building permit. And in order to get the building permit, you had to have an engineer. So which came first? So that started me down the path of trying to find somebody that would be interested and willing to take this on as an engineering project. And most of the people I called, they politely declined. Well, I happened to stumble across an elderly gentleman in Anderson that said, yeah, I'd be interested in it. So he came up and away we went. Drove up there to the barn, took him in there with a tape measure, and he started measuring everything up and getting all the dimensions and started in on the project. And it took him, I don't know, probably 3 months, 3 or 4 months to get all the engineering done. And we went back and forth on some of the stuff. Initially he had the outer walls. Well, first off, the original barn was all pine. It was all built out of pine. Well, to meet his structural requirements, it had to be out of Doug fir. So that pretty well took out any chance of using any of the original barn's main structure for the barn. And then on the outer walls, the initial drawings that he sent me showed boards on the outside, but an inner lining or skin of OSB, particle board. And I went back to him and said, no, we can't. You can't have particle board in a round barn. I said, you got to have cracks. You need to be able to see through those cracks in the walls. So, okay, so he rectified that by adding more bracing. So, long story short, it was a project that took 6 years. But what really gave me a good feeling about the community was the level of support that we got from the community once we got started into it. There was many a sleepless night I was laying in bed thinking, what in the world have I done? How are we going to get this thing completed? So here's some pictures of the thing from the inside. And it is a lot more impressive from the inside than it is driving around past it from the outside. One little interesting tidbit was this crow's nest right up in here. braces. The engineer came to me, he says, he says, I don't know why those are there. He said, it's not structural. They're not needed. Well, we found out why they were there when we brought the barn down and started, we were salvaging material. The original center pole wasn't tall enough to go all the way up. They had made a splice in the pole right there, and that's how they braced that splice. So the last 9 or 10 feet of that pole were spliced on, and that's what's the. And then this pole right here, we put that back in. That was what was up there originally, and the only thing that we could figure what that was in there for was for running here, putting the hay in the lofts, because the original barn there was feeders all the way around. Okay, and we differed from the original design to the effect that this area right here in between these uprights, in this area, that was all solid wood boarded up. But it would make it so dark in there that you couldn't see anything. And that was one of the stories that I'd heard, that the original barn really didn't work as well as they had hoped, because it was so dark in there, the horses didn't like it. And the reason the barn was built, and we back up a little bit, the original barn was built was the gentleman had a contract with the U.S. Cavalry, U.S. Army, to supply cavalry horses. Johnston during World War I. So he needed an all-weather horse breaking facility. It was basically a 40-foot diameter covered round pen. That's what it is. And they had there was a meadow out to the north of the original barn, and we are surmising that this beam was put in so that they could run a fork to lift the hay off the wagons and swing it over, and then they could carry the hay along, put it on that log. Yes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. All right, I'll quickly go through the rest of these then.
What did construction cost?
Ooh, that's a good question, Scott. My guess, by the time it was all said and done, most of the material was donated. The biggest portion that we had come up with was the roof, was the shingles on the roof.
Shake, to shake, right?
The shake.
$50,000.
That was 40 or 50 grand for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Sierra Pacific donated all of the sheeting, all those rough cut 2x4s. William Beatty and Associates donated all the structural material, and a lot of all these are hand fit. All these braces are all hand fit in. So really, material wise, there wasn't a whole lot.
And then we got a grant for the roof.
Right. Modoc Steel,
We
Gerlinger
bought the
Steel.
shakes though.
Gerlinger Steel donated all the rebar. Hackway and Hack Reconstruction donated, not all of it, but a good portion of the cement for the foundation.
Any idea if you had to pay for all that? What that thing
Oh my
was?
God, if you had to pay that, if you had to build that barn, you'd be into it probably a couple $100,000, probably pretty easy.
Probably.
I think basically all we bought was the shakes.
Yeah, that was
The
about
labor, I was gonna say.
Okay.
Labor.
All right, well, I'm going to give you a little, this is our next project that I'm hoping to complete within the next few years. I don't know if this is possible. Future PG Hydro History Building. This is in just design stage right now. Our plan is, I'll give you a little history on that. In 1999, at Pit 3 Powerhouse, there was an old piece of equipment, spare exciter, that has water wheel driven spare exciter that was donated to the museum. I started with PG&E in 1985, and I got to see a lot of this old antique equipment as time would go on and technology is upgraded. This old equipment was just removed, cut up for scrap, it's gone. So I went to my boss at the time when this piece of equipment was going to be scrapped, and I asked him, I said, is there any way possible we can get this donated to the Historical Society? So it was 1999, it was given to the museum, and we are going down the path of trying to get that moved and get a building built. But, unfortunately, the cost and everything got another project that we're working on, us trying to. Museum hours of operation, May 1st through October 31st, Tuesday through Sunday from noon to 4. Any questions?
Question for Robert?
Where is taking the coach down to Reading with 2 overnight stops, where did he stop?
You know, my guess is, judging from the stories that I've heard from that my grandfather told me, when they would travel from Fall River to Reading, a lot of times they would stop at that yellow house on Fenders Ferry Road.
That was a stage stop.
Got it, yeah.
That's what they did.
That was about to fall
That was
down.
one of them.
I fell
Yeah, when they would drive cattle down, their first night
Just even in the last
was here at
couple
the
of
Haynes
years,
Ranch,
you can see
at the
the
base of
big
Hatchery. The next night was at the Yellow House.
Next to the
The third day, they would make it, I believe it was down in that area where the watermelon fruit stand is, where Rickards owned that property right there off of 299, just out of Bella Vista. And then the next day, they would take them on into Reading or Anderson or wherever they put them on the rail.